We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back on Liberty Nation Radio with longtime host and political analyst Tim Donner. In our first segment, we discussed Joe Biden's embrace of McCarthyism. But now I want to discuss what impact such a divisive president is having on the American psyche. Tim, Joe Biden campaigned on being the unity candidate. He waxed lyrical about unity during his inauguration speech, and it was a message that the Fourth Estate was only too happy to pick up and run with. Then it seems to me that his present version of unity and what that word means is that of a one-party state. What's your take on that?
Well, Joe Biden in his inaugural address used the word unity, or the equivalent, 19 times. He said his whole soul was in this unity. 19 times. That's more than it had ever been spoken before. Now, he could have been, he could have gone in the direction of like Trump did, which was to talk about American carnage. And he could have at that time said the greatest challenge here are MAGA Republicans. He could have set the tone right then to say, look, this is the biggest threat to the nation. But he went in the opposite direction, which I mean, unity was everything in his inaugural, and it's absolutely nothing in his administration. I mean, I can't point to anything that he has done which was a serious attempt at unity. And I mean, to say unity 19 times in your inaugural and then condemn 74 million people that voted, and he can try to walk it back and say, well, I didn't mean Trump voters. He sure as heck did, because they're the ones, given the choice, pulled the lever for Donald Trump. Now, all that Joe Biden has proven, like most liberals, the only thing he's good at doing, it's two things. He can spend your money. He can spend taxpayers' money very well, find new ways to reach into their pockets, take out more money, and then figure new progressive. But the other thing that he's proven willing to do and that he's good at is, I suppose, is attack, simply attack. I mean, he said that the voter reform law in Georgia was Jim Crow 2.0. Okay. That is such an insult to people who actually lived through the Jim Crow era and were brought low by it. For him to compare voting laws, which, by the way, proved exactly what the Republicans said, that a big turnout in the Georgia primary with these new awful voting laws. So, look, what gets me is if Biden had set the tone from the beginning of his administration as anathema as it might have been to many people, at least he would have given an accurate forecast or an accurate narrative on what he was planning to do. But to go to the opposite extreme, to be extreme enough to use 19 times the word unity, and then to go to the other end and call the people that he was trying to unify supposedly as semi-fascist extremists and violent criminals, lawless individuals.
Well, doesn't that just show that he's given up on the unity message? I mean, he didn't even try, really. I mean, you see what's happened in the Senate, a 50-50 split Senate. Most legislation that's being passed is being passed with the swing vote from Kamala Harris, vice president. And then, of course, on the places when they tried to get Republican support for Democrat policy and Democrat bills, when they don't vote for it, when Republicans don't vote for it, they say they launch into attacks them saying not a single Republican voted for it, as came in Joe Biden's speech. But it's not just Joe Biden, is it? It's the whole White House administration. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, she said about MAGA, and I've got a quote here: the MAGA agenda, especially as it relates to Congress, relates to elected officials. It's one of the most extreme agendas we've ever seen. It's the extreme part of the Republican Party. She also said the purveyors of it are threatening political violence, and they're attacking our democracy. This is divisive language, Tim. It's not just the president going off reservation here, but it's a whole team effort. Now, isn't that a sign of authoritarianism and demagoguery to berate and vilify the country? Is there any rationale to explain it other than Joe Biden has failed and now he needs an out?
Well, fortunately for Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, and it's not just his work, it's the work of most of the Republican Party bigwigs, so to speak, and conservative activists who have put together a 2022 version of the Republican Party's 1994 contract with America. And there's some specific things in there that they're committing to doing once they take control of the House, which I think it's fairly safe to say they will. The margin is in question. But, once they do that, once they release that agenda for the election, Republicans will be united behind that sort of contract with America's successor. So you'll have the Republicans' vision of what they plan to do, which is to bring it back to something approaching the Trump economy, the Trump foreign policy as well, and all the things that Trump succeeded at in his first 3 years that left the country in excellent position before the pandemic. So you'll have, on the one hand, Democrats throwing it all into attacking Republicans and calling them extreme and calling them semi-fascist, full-on negative campaign against Republicans who, if they hew the McCarthy line, will go with this contract with America, which has specific positive things that they will do. But the problem beyond that, Mark, is that Mitch McConnell is not in agreement with the idea that Republicans should even give a vision of what they will do. McConnell thinks that Republicans should attack the Democrats the same way the Democrats are attacking the Republicans. McConnell thinks it should all be on their record. That is a viable opinion, but if the Republicans can go with a positive message, it will contrast starkly with the Democrats. Well, to say it's a negative vision, a dark vision, a haunting vision of America, a dystopian vision of America would be at this point almost an understatement.
Tim Donner, thank you ever so much for being here.
Always enjoyable, Mark. Thanks.
You're listening to Liberty Nation Radio, heard across the Radio America network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. Remember, you can tune in for Liberty Nation on KSRM 920 AM and 92.5 FM out of Kenai, Alaska. Later on, we talk leftist lawyers with Scott Cosenza. But up next, after this short break, we ask if the BLM grift is finally over. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five.